A soldier sits on the train tracks. He's not trying to save the world or defend freedom. He just wants to get home. The train that will carry him is more than 1,000 miles away. The odds of reaching it seem slim, but when you have no other choice, you just have to try. His goal is a small village, somewhere in the middle of nowhere. It looks like any other settlement in this war. Homes are destroyed, fields are empty, streets are quiet. This is where he grew up. He hasn't seen his mother in months, but he assumes she's here. Hopefully, there's still somewhere to return to. The soldier's journey tells you everything about this war. The first 3 miles go fast. It's flat, it's downhill, and there's very little chance of danger. Just like at the start of the conflict, in the first weeks and months, Ukrainian forces were able to slow down the advance and inflict serious losses. Russia didn't expect this. They had assumed the war would be quick. This is the Russian army entering Grozny. These men are celebrating, destroying buildings, killing civilians. There's no real plan. This is what an unprepared and brutal army looks like. The second 3 miles are harder. The terrain rises, slow, steady progress, and the threat of discovery is constant. Now the fighting intensifies, but it's mostly out of sight. Soldiers are dug deep into the ground, hidden in trenches and behind hills. It's a cat-and-mouse game. Neither side can truly win. But this is also where the casualties mount. And the closer they get to home, the more casualties both sides suffer. This is the reality of a war of attrition. Ukrainian forces know these roads well. They use them to strike and disappear. Then they wait for the Russians to move on. Then they strike again. This is Bakhmut. The city is destroyed, the population is gone, but it's still contested. So the fight drags on. The last 3 miles are the toughest. The final stretch is uphill, exhausting, and there's a constant threat of discovery. This is where the war will be decided. This is where victory is measured in inches. If the soldier makes it, it will be a personal victory. Maybe he'll see his family again. Maybe he can rebuild his life. But the bigger picture is grimmer. Victory is within reach, but total victory seems impossible. He may have reached his own home, but the country as a whole isn't coming back. His village may be liberated, but the scars of this war will never fade. If he's lucky, he'll live in peace. But around him, millions will live with the consequences of this war forever. In the 21st century, wars are as much about endurance as weapons. Will the world tire of sending help before this country can win? That question hangs heavy over the head of every leader in Eastern Europe. They face 2 enemies, one on the battlefield, one in the court of world opinion. The soldier who sets off on our story's journey is not one of the main characters in this war. It's not a general or a politician. It's one of millions. An ordinary man fighting an extraordinary war. His journey is also the journey of this country, and his fate mirrors that of the nation. In the beginning, it's easy. He watches from afar as bombs fall, as cities burn, as his world collapses. At first, the soldier is inspired. He joins the fight alongside thousands of others, defending the things he loves, protecting his people, his land, his flag. There's a potent mix of fear, adrenaline, and defiance. Together, they stand against the odds. But days turn into weeks, weeks into months, and the initial inspiration fades into routine. Every day is the same. Every mission feels pointless. Every victory is overshadowed by future battles. Still, the soldier pushes on, receives orders, takes part in operations, fights alongside comrades who become like brothers. He doesn't question his duty, only the purpose of his actions. As the war rages on, he faces terrible choices. He sees friends die. He experiences loss and grief, anger and despair. But he endures. Gradually, he stops thinking about winning the war. He focuses on surviving it. Months pass, seasons change, and the weather turns harsh. The soldier keeps moving, fighting, enduring. But his thoughts drift to simpler times, to a life before war and destruction. The soldier is just one part of this story. To understand the future of this war, you need to meet 2 more, the commander and the general. The commander is the elected leader of a nation. He appears strong and confident. He addresses parliaments, meets visiting dignitaries, and rallies his people. But his authority is challenged at every turn. First, his critics question his decisions. Why does he pick one battle over another? Why does he accept certain casualties? Why does he keep fighting? Then his critics ask about the cost. What sacrifices are necessary? How many lives and how much money? Is victory worth the price? Finally, his critics point to the future. What happens when the fighting ends? Will his country be whole again? Can it ever truly recover? All of these questions test the commander's resolve. After all, he wasn't elected to win wars, but to serve his people. The general is the hired expert. He knows tactics, logistics, and strategy. He understands battles, campaigns, and grand plans. He argues passionately for the necessity of fighting, for the importance of strategy, for the need for resources. But while he speaks confidently about military matters, he knows little about politics. He doesn't care about public opinion. He doesn't understand the cost of living. He doesn't know if victory is worth the price. The general's job is simple: win the war. The commander's job is much harder. He must balance competing interests, make difficult choices, and lead a nation through uncertainty. And unlike the general, he cannot rely on principles, only on results. This is a rare war without a finish line. No one knows how long it will last. Some days it seems like a stalemate. Other days, it seems like a sprint. But most days, it feels like a marathon. The soldier and the commander have one advantage: international support. At the start, it looked like a lonely battle. The big powers stayed away. The neighbors were indifferent. The allies were uncertain. But as the war raged on, the commander found strength in numbers. Powerful nations joined the fight. Billions of dollars arrived. Advanced weaponry was provided. And the commander felt invincible. But now that unity is fraying, the world is asking questions. How much more money will be given? How many more troops will be deployed? What's the exit strategy? And if the commander doesn't have answers, the aid could dry up. Suddenly, the war he thought he could win with help now seems unwinnable without it. The commander stands at the crossroads. 3 paths lay before him. One leads to quick concessions, another to relentless fighting, and a third to seeking compromise. Each path is fraught with challenges. You can negotiate for peace, but that can mean giving up territory, influence, or power. You can keep fighting, but that could drain the nation's resources, causing economic, social, and political upheaval. Or you can hope for a decisive victory on the battlefield, but that could take years, if not decades. The world moves on, but the war drags on. And when the world moves on, the war loses urgency. As the years pass, the stakes change. At first, it was about stopping the invasion. Then it was about driving the invaders back. Then it was about retaking lost territory. But now it's about ending the fighting. Any victory seems distant. Any peace seems elusive. The war is slowly forgotten, relegated to newspaper corners and evening news. For the commander, this is the toughest moment. The war is taking its toll, but so is the isolation. The soldier keeps fighting, though he wonders about the point. The general keeps planning, though he ignores the cost. And the commander keeps making tough calls, knowing that no matter what he chooses, he might not survive the consequences. He was once celebrated as a hero, but now he's just another casualty of war. He was once revered for his courage, but now he's just another pawn in a deadly game. He was once considered invincible, but now he's just another statistic. He was once seen as a champion, but now he's just another casualty of war. He was once lauded as a leader, but now he's just another casualty of war. He was once hailed as a beacon, but now he's just another casualty of war. In this war, the greatest threat is not the enemy on the battlefield, but the doubts in the minds of those who could help. The biggest challenge is not the weapons of war, but the waning attention span of the world. The most dangerous opponent is not the invading force, but the ticking clock of public apathy. For the first time in this conflict, the future is not looking bright. It is looking uncertain. The road ahead is not looking hopeful. It is looking perilous. The battle for support is becoming more important than the battle on the ground. And the true victory will not be measured in territory gained or lost, but in the will to keep going when the world outside is ready to move on. The new year is shaping up to be a turning point. For the leadership of this nation, the greatest challenge will not only be the pressures on the ground, but the shifting winds in Western capitals. In earlier years, the message from our partners was clear and strong. We will stand with you. But today, the tone has changed. Quiet discussions now focus on limits, budget pressures, and realistic goals. These subtle changes reveal how fragile international backing can be. In the United States, every new support package sparks a heated debate. Critics argue the resources should be directed at home to the needs of citizens struggling with everyday challenges. The question is no longer about moral duty alone. It's about priorities in a world where choices are increasingly difficult. Across Europe, the story is similar but shaped by different struggles. Rising costs of energy, pressure on housing, and the arrival of displaced families have left many communities feeling stretched. Political groups that once held little influence are now gaining ground with a simple message: focus inward, not outward. And this message is resonating with voters. Polls show that many citizens are uneasy with open-ended commitments, especially when they see little tangible progress. Leaders in our nation's capital remain committed to the principles of freedom and stability, but they too must answer to their people, and public patience is wearing thin. The situation on the ground is not making things easier. Progress is slow, costs are high, and optimism has faded. Even governments that have been our staunchest supporters are starting to wonder about investing more resources without clear results. As we head into the new year, the level of support we receive from abroad is in danger of being reduced. Now, this would not happen all at once, not tomorrow or next month. But the trend is clear and worrying. Fewer deliveries, fewer firm commitments, fewer speeches of support. Slow fading of attention can be as damaging as a sudden break. There's one more factor adding to these concerns. The presidential election in the United States in 2025, a change in leadership in Washington, could completely change the situation. If the new policies reduce U.S. involvement, Europe would have to carry the responsibility alone, which most European nations are simply not prepared to do. So let's be clear about what's at stake here. We are facing a very real possibility that the level of outside assistance we receive may steadily decline in the months ahead. And that decline will likely be felt across three key areas: military aid, financial aid, and political support. Let's start with military aid. The weapons, the ammunition, the training, and the intelligence sharing that have been crucial to our defense strategy. As budget constraints bite deeper into NATO countries, the volume and the speed of military aid could slow down. We might receive fewer advanced weapons and more hand-me-downs, fewer training programs and more theoretical lessons, fewer intelligence exchanges and more delayed reactions.
Nice.
This shift would force us to rely more on our own resources, which are still developing. It would mean more pressure on our defense industry to innovate and produce at home, which is possible but will take time. It would also mean a greater need to protect our emerging technologies, which we are determined to do. But this transition will be challenging, and the risks are high. A drop in military aid could mean more casualties, more destroyed infrastructure, and more setbacks on the battlefield. We cannot allow that to happen. The second area where we might see a pullback is financial aid. The economic assistance that has helped stabilize our currency, support our public services, and fund reconstruction projects. With budget pressures mounting at home, the amount of direct financial aid could decrease. We might see fewer grants and more loans, fewer investments in infrastructure, and more focus on immediate humanitarian needs. This shift would force us to rely more on our own revenues, which are volatile and unpredictable. It would mean tougher decisions about spending and priorities, and it would mean slower progress in rebuilding our economy. We cannot afford that. Then there's the third area, political support. The diplomatic backing, the united front, and the personal solidarity that have helped us stay the course. But that united front is starting to crack. As domestic pressures rise, some of our partners may start to waver. Some might push for negotiations even if they don't serve our interests. Some might give in to demands that threaten our security. Some might look the other way while our sovereignty is violated. This shift would leave us more isolated, more vulnerable, and more exposed. We cannot accept that. So what's the solution? How can we prevent this slide from becoming a catastrophe? Well, first, we must acknowledge the reality of the situation. We can't keep asking for unlimited support, while offering no clear vision or results. We need to be realistic about our needs and our progress. We need to be accountable for our actions and our impact. Second, We must adapt to the changing circumstances. We can't keep doing things the same way and expect different outcomes. We need to explore new ways of getting supplies, new partners, and new technologies. We need to build bridges where others see walls. We must speak up more forcefully on the world stage. We can't keep playing defense and expect to win the game. We need to articulate our own vision of peace and security. We need to offer our own contributions to regional stability. We need to build a broad coalition of support around our goals. Because let's not forget this, the situation could still change. A new American administration could bring fresh momentum to our cause. A more united Europe could amplify our voice and presence. And a stronger global coalition could impose a lasting peace. But that means now is the time to prepare, to adapt, and to advance. We cannot wait for others to come to our rescue. We must be proactive in shaping our own future. You know, there's a proverb in our language that says, when the mountain is about to fall, the stone at the top falls first. The point is, that trouble rarely comes from afar. It often starts at your doorstep. So what's happening in our region affects all of us deeply. It is a test of our strength, our unity, and our resolve. But it is also an opportunity to forge a new path, a path that leads to independence, prosperity, and peace. Now we will not succeed without courage. Courage to make tough choices, courage to face hard truths, and courage to chart a bold course. But we have that courage. Our ancestors passed it on to us, and we will not let them down. They fought and sacrificed so that we could live in freedom. We will not betray their memory. We will honor it by taking control of our destiny. And let me say this to our friends abroad. We value your partnership, we appreciate your support, and we respect your challenges. But we will not beg for help. We will not accept charity. We will not tolerate lectures. We will work with those who respect us, but we will not depend on anyone but ourselves. This is our land. This is our home, and we will defend it with all our might. Thank you.